Today's guest is Rob Ruff, fourth generation CEO of Ruff Roofers and a brand new dad, juggling toddlers and team meetings. We dive into what it really takes to lead a legacy business in a modern world, from navigating family dynamics, hiring practices, building culture, and learning how to be present both home and at work. Whether you're growing a business, raising a family, or both, this one's for you.
Welcome to Ace Rodney Talks for the Superstars. Tonight.
Hi, I'm Britt Arnold, president of Tegler Construction and Supply.
And I'm Mick Arnold, president of Arnold Packaging and Arnold Automation, and welcome to the Love and Business podcast. And we are joined by another guest. As I told you in our last episode, we've got some amazing guests coming up, and today is certainly no exception. We have Rob Ruff from Ruff Roofers. Rob, welcome, and we're so excited to have you here.
Yes, very excited.
Thanks
a guest and friend.
And friend, yes,
which
of course.
Makes it way better.
Yeah. So, Rob, we'd love for you to start off for our audience. Give us a little bit of background, even an elevator pitch of Ruff Roofers today. We're certainly going to wind it all the way back. You've got such rich, deep heritage with a family business and 4 generations, and we're definitely going to get there. But give us present day Ruff.
Yeah, so present day Ruff is really run by my brother and I. We're kind of like, my dad passed about a dozen years ago. He was really the leader of the organization. My brother and I kind of took on a co-CEO role. We operate in very different lanes today, but we really run the business together. We merge when projects come to life, really, whether it's in estimating or project management, all the way down to awards dinners. We kind of do it all together. But present day really is Tim and I running the company. Great leadership below us that I feel like today we are just constantly training, mentoring, and grooming that next generation of leaders, and that's where all the time is spent, is with the people.
Cool. And obviously Ruff Roofers. Yeah. So roofing, commercial, residential, just give us a little bit of an idea or snapshot of the market that you serve and what a day in the life looks like.
Sure. So we lead with service. We always have. We're a services business at the end of the day. So our service department is probably 15% of our business. We run, a dozen 2-man crews that just go out and do service, emergency blow-offs on the corner of your building from a windstorm, all the way to preventive maintenance on a hospital, and go out there and check it every month. So service is the most important, not the biggest part of the business, but it's just very important because that's how we can solidify to a client who we are, and we're just there to take care of them. So I would call service at about 15% of our business. And granted, we're just under a $60 million business here in Baltimore, DC today. I think service billed just shy of $8 million last year. The next piece is residential. We've always done residential. When my great-grandfather started out in the 1930s, he was a residential home builder prior to that. When the Great Depression hit, he went into repairing roofs on houses. So that's kind of how we stemmed, but I know we'll get in a little more history later. But residential, $5 million a year, but we do everything under the sun. It could be your townhouse all the way to we're replacing a cedar roof on a home in Potomac, and it's $1 million. So it's not just specialty work, which is what we're known for, like that steep, wow, they did the dome on Hopkins type roof, but it's also just the regular residential from, the working guys like us. Commercial re-roofing, a little bit of new construction, but commercial re-roofing is the lion's share of the business. Everything under the sun. So we're pretty well diversified with all the manufacturers, types of roofs. That is, so do the math, I guess 75 to 80% of the business. Like I said, I mentioned new con. We don't try to go out every day and do new construction. That's just a different animal in the world of roofing. A lot of start and stop. I'm ready for you. I'm not ready for you. To run, 150 roofers every day, new construction just does not fit the scheduling. The rain, the wind, the cranes needed, the safety mandates from the big GCs of the world. You can't run a finely tuned and efficient machine by new and new con every day. But we can't also discount it either when the market goes down and we can do a million square foot data center in Northern Virginia, we jump right on it. So, it's still feeding our families, a couple hundred people just about every day. So, but our niche really is commercial re-roofing. And like I said, the technical jobs, the really high profile jobs, we did a job that's sticking out to me a couple years ago in Virginia called Gunston Hall. And, one of the signers of the Declaration, I think might have been George Mason's house. But in short, the architect put out this RFP and you had to put all your qualifications in and your past performance and all the things that make the owner a little more comfortable in getting even to that pre-award part. Mm-hmm. I think 38 roofers turned in their packages and they only selected 2 to even bid it. So that's kind of like some of the level of technical experience we have. It sounds far-fetched, but it truly is generationally passed on a lot of it. I mean, some of these trade secrets that I was just, I travel the country and visit other roofers, which I'll get to a little later, but I was just meeting with some peers in Charlotte last week and I was telling them some of the things and their eyes were popping out of their head. And I'm like, my dad told me that like 25 years ago, so it's really cool to see like some of that stuff be utilized on a daily basis and truly help you win jobs. But back to the meat of the business in that commercial re-roofing market, it's everything out there. It's hospital, we call it MUSH, municipal, university, schools, and healthcare. That's
MUSH. I love that.
Yeah. And it's that recession-proof business, when the 2008 kind of downturn hit and we saw, I can think of 2 off the top of my head, roofers that went out of business, like good competitors. And we grew 15% in 2008 and 16% in 2009. It was from just diversifying. And do you do pavers? Sure.
Today I do.
Waterproofing?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And we just started getting into different services that we historically never did. We went and bought hot melters and, half of the DC market is hot rubberized asphalt. It's very limited up here because of the concrete structures don't exist like they do there. But that's just an example of another service that we just started doing almost 20 years ago now. Crazy to say, but just really kind of adapting to the market and starting to do green roofing. And we did a few jobs ourselves and then we learned, let's just hire the landscaper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So when they say, do you do green roofing? Really, it's yes, I'll manage that landscaper.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Right. Because at our office and we're making the calls at 4:35 in the morning, that's just another 15 guys of personalities we don't have to deal with that morning.
Yeah.
Right. So some of these are easy to plug and play with good partners, as you know, in your business. Yep. But it's really the slate, the tile, the copper roofing, all those like really cool technical jobs. That's what's exciting about roofing for us. Mm-hmm. Going out on your warehouse here at Trade Point Atlantic, that's not fun work if you're in the roofing world, is kicking out rolls like carpet every day.
Right.
No offense to the guys that do that day in and day out, but it's just not fun work for us. Mm-hmm. We do a ton of it now because as you grow, those niche projects, they're just far and few between. Right. Like there's a couple companies that truly specialize in them and they have to travel the country to find those jobs. So those are the fun jobs for us. They really get your mind going. We have, like I talked about the talent for a quick second. We have 4, about to be 5 licensed engineers that work for us, professional engineers with the state of Maryland. And, we just went to a different talent pool to kind of help us manage those jobs and those types of guys that learn to think. But that's really the summary of the business today and kind of what we do. And
cool.
I would say there's nothing we don't do.
Yeah.
That's the attitude.
Got to know that to build out on this, right?
What's that?
So we have to know what you do so we can build out.
Yeah, and it's a cool, I love the connection because obviously we're Tegler Construction and Supply and Ruff Roofers are partners. And then you, Mick, with Arnold Packaging, your stories are so similar, being 4th generation.
Yeah.
So I think a great segue would be to roll it back to the initial start, which it was called Roofing by Ruff, right? But,
yeah. So historically, and this is before I was born, it was the Charles F. Ruff Company, which was my grandfather's name. And he had certain trade names. Roofing by Ruff Roofers.
Got
I
it.
mean, there's still old posters on a wall that say Ruff Roofers, and it was definitely before I was born, right? 100 years ago. But my grandmother even had a woman-owned business in the 80s called Intercoastal Maintenance, and she did roof vacuuming, right? So all
I like her.
all the other roofers would call us to vacuum their roofs, which was very interesting when I would look back as a teenager. Oh, you get to find out where all the other roofers are working and who they're working for. I was like, that's an interesting business model. And my grandfather at the time was just like, we'll just keep that quiet.
Yeah.
But no, bunch of different trade names, but really that was the company until 1996 when my dad bought my grandfather's business.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you remember of the relationship between your dad and your granddad?
My granddad was tough. I mean, he was tough. He was not as much as a visionary as my dad. So my dad, I'll go back. My dad and my granddad. So my dad was on the roof till he was probably 38, right? And my brother was probably on the roof till he was 30. But as an owner's son, to be out there just coming home with a black face and dirty clothes every day in a really reputable and large company, it's kind of really unheard of. It's almost like he was kind of keeping them at bay, right? But it was a tough relationship. I don't think he really let my dad grow as much as he could have.
Question. Do you remember the age difference between your dad and your granddad?
Yes.
Ballpark.
I
Even
do.
if you don't remember exactly.
It was probably 28 years.
Cool.
20 for my dad and I.
Great context. That's what I just want to understand that.
Yep. And I have an uncle who is 2 years older than my dad. And they kind of split the business up where my uncle ran the low slope or flat crews and my dad ran the steep slope and the slate work, that kind of thing.
Right.
That
So
was
your dad's 38 and your dad's 38 and your grandfather is, 60 couple few,
Yep.
right? And your dad's still on the roof at 38.
Yeah, until he bought the business, really.
Right.
Yep. Yeah.
Huh.
And what inspired or motivated your dad to buy the business?
So my grandfather got into some financial difficulties, and the easiest pathway to kind of like reset himself and my grandmother was my dad could buy this real estate and business entity, trade names, all that good stuff. So it was kind of like his retirement package. He didn't work anymore after that. My dad just kind of, I call it hit the reset button, right? He started over with, 7, 8 guys in a truck, and all the way down to the guys would bring the truck back, and then my dad would go do estimates in the evening, right? So that was 96 is when that all went down. And I'm in high school at the time, and I just remember like my dad just building 7 days a week working,
Did he bring you along when you were younger?
Yes. And that's how I knew I did not want to go in this business, right? So I was like, roofing? This is crazy. Every day was crazy. I mean, dealing with the men and, this guy didn't show up, so this can't happen today. And the weather. And granted, I grew up, my dad working 7 days a week, truly to put food on the table. My mom working at Pizza Hut and then Nordstrom to carry health insurance for the family. So very humble upbringings. But seeing that even as like a younger teenager, I knew like, that is not my path. So I set out when I went to school was to find something else.
And what were you looking for? Or did you think you were looking for?
Not roofing.
Anything but
It
roofing.
was not
Anything that
roofing.
looked exactly the opposite of roofing?
Anything. But it was really just to have something. I liked law. I started out pre-law. I was pre-law at Villa Julie. Now it's Stevenson.
Yeah.
And then I switched my second year to accounting. Started working for my dad. I remember going in asking him, "Can I borrow $100?" And he's like, "There's a time clock." And I said, "What?" And I'm thinking, like, all my buddies on my lacrosse team, they're getting checks sent to them every month. Oh, have fun. Here's your allowance. And my dad's like, "You can go wash these trucks at night, and you can go do this." And I started looking like at the books and the estimates, and I'm like, oh, there could be some money to be made here. So I opened my eyes to the accounting piece, and I truly took over his accounting. He was paying, this is 99. He was paying this accountant $40,000 a year for this little roofing company, call it $2 million a year in revenue, to do his payables and his payroll. I'm like, I can do this in 3 or 4 hours a week. So we fired this accountant, and I got QuickBooks, and I was using my accounting professor, who we later hired. Another story. I was using my accounting professor.
Got to hear that.
To just kind of guide me and help me do these quarterly 941 deposits and all this stuff. So just learning that, and then I started getting into estimating, and I don't know how far you want me to go down that, but this is kind of what starts the pivot into I want to be with this roofing company.
Yeah,
now.
let's go there. We gotta.
Did you hit the roof? Did you spend some time on the roof?
So I was on the roof summers and winters throughout college. Like even some buddies from high school and college would come work with us in the summers. We did everything. I mean, my brother tells a really good story about our upbringing, like being 8, 9 years old, picking up shingle wrappers on the job site of, some apartments, and just being there. And again, we're just grunts. And then in freshman, sophomore year, we would move up to maybe we can come off the tear-off crew and not just do cleanup and caulking. Maybe we can start putting some slate down. And, for some of the foremen and that, it was more of a, all right, just give the kids something to do, right? It wasn't truly training, but at least I got to do something different than picking up trash all day. So still knew that was not what I wanted to do. That was a fact. There was no going back. But I would say, my third year of college, when my dad had one real sales guy at the time, and he asked him for this kind of exuberant raise, because even before the LinkedIn poaching days, which we're all familiar with, these recruiters would come in and say, hey, we'll give you X more. And I'm like, Dad, let that guy go. He's like, well, who's going to go do these estimates? I have to go do this and I have to go do this. And, so that Saturday, I'll never forget, I took like all these, I'm going to say 8 estimates out of our bin. Like if you called up for a roof, take all your info down. Hey, we'll call you. We'll stop out. One Saturday, I went out and I did these estimates, and I came back with almost $100,000 in deposits. So he comes in Monday and he's like, he calls me actually, because I was at school. He's like, what's this? I said, I told you this was easy. He was like, what? I said, yeah, those are signed contracts and those are all 1/3 deposits. And I said, let that guy go. He wound up letting the guy go. And I said, well, yeah, I can do estimating. So I changed my business again, or my major again, to business administration, minor in marketing. And I really did leverage these teachers at Villa Julie, who were, just digressing for a second. The real power of that school back then was like a lot of these professors actually worked. They weren't only professors. It was such a commuter school, and it's so tied into the business community in Baltimore. Like, remember this guy, Dr. Bone, he was married to like Mr. Rouse's daughter. Like this guy was an astute businessman, and he was kind of looking at my Ruff Roofers projects and the trajectory I wanted to do with this business, even as a junior in college. So it was really, really helpful to have that experience with a smaller school.
Right.
Yeah.
Very cool to see. But back again to switching majors and looking at the books and saying, oh, this actually could be easy to grow. I mean, I'm one person. I can sell way more than this. And, of course, I'm young and full of energy, and it worked. I mean, we wrote a 5-year business plan as my senior thesis, and we did $2.5 million that year. And I said, well, within 5 years, I'm going to do $5 million. And we did it in 2 years.
So this is the very first episode of the guest series that we're going to be rolling out. We are bringing some very engaging and interesting guests onto our podcast. So please, if you're interested, don't forget to subscribe. So when every episode comes out, you're notified and you can join in on the conversation.
Right. So that's kind of just the history, how I got into roofing.
Mm-hmm. How was your relationship with your dad? And I asked because I knew that if my father had lived much longer than he did, we would have been like 2 propeller heads butting together. He was born in 1921, Depression era, so very conservative. I was much different, not a wild ass or a ridiculous risk taker, but I was always willing to bet on me. Mm-hmm. So how was your relationship with your dad in that moment? He's probably watching you and everything you said, oh, Junior, calm down. You don't know what you're doing. Like that would have been a little bit of what I got. How was your relationship, and how much free reign did he give you to do what you wanted to do in those moments as a guy that had to buy the business from his dad, obviously a lot of burden because it's hard to make money in business, right? It's hard to create enough cash to be able to buy out your parent and then still be able to feed your family too. And that can breed some conservatism that might hamper the business. How was your relationship in that moment?
So, and just a little tidbit, my mother's, one of her really good friends, her husband invested with my dad. He basically wrote the check to buy my grandfather out, right? So he did have that really great relationship with this, I'll call it father figure, because the guy was 30 years older than my dad, and he was a very successful businessman in another field. But he was able to do it via that manner. But my relationship, like, I can't say enough about it. I mean, it was my best friend, right? So being only 20 years apart, and I won't lie, everything was a negotiation, everything. But I think he took the relationship with his dad and he was like, I'm not doing that, right? Like, that's not going to be me. So he was, and I even tell my brother to this day, I'm like, he was crazy, like letting us just do this. And he's like in Key West with my mom and claiming, he's Florida resident, so he can't be in Maryland for 6 months. And I'm like, when I say everything was negotiation, I mean, if I wanted to buy this next piece of equipment, I had to show it out. How's it going to pay for itself? And, all the way down to throwing the credit card back every month, because he's arguing about my American Express bill and I have to justify why and what and when. And like I say, everything was a negotiation, but it was like I was working for my best buddy. Really, he was my best friend. And I think my brother would say the same thing. We were both very tight with Dad. But his management style was like, I've used this a couple times in the last 25 years. He was like that lawyer you have on retainer. You don't want to use them, right? But you can tap them at any time, but it's going to cost you.
Yeah.
Right. And he gave you enough rope to choke, but not hang yourself. That was exactly what I would say his management style is. Because, as we built the business, as we did hiring, we ran everything by him. None of this was done on our own. But he just, when I said earlier, he was like a little more of a visionary. He, as an example, National Roofing put together this pilot program with the Kellogg School of Business in Chicago. National Roofing was in Chicago, so I think that's how they kind of connected it. And in the second class, my dad gets this flyer in the mail and says, hey, 3-year program. And I don't know what it was, 40 grand, which even today, it's not a small number. And this is 2004, right? This is 21 years ago. Yeah. My dad's like, you got to go to this program. I'm working 80 to 100 hours a week, which I still do. And I'm like, there's no time to go to Chicago for a day. I have to get sales to keep these crews busy. And then I have to help project manage them to make sure they have the right stuff, all those things. And he's like, listen, you're going to figure out when you go out there, we're working out of a closet. You're going to go meet all these other roofers, because just a little bit more about the program. They kind of put 28, we called them SOBs, sons of the boss. 28 SOBs in a class, and there was 2 women in there, which, I'm still very tight with one and still in touch with another. But you're really going to figure out, like, there's so much more to learn.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, oh, let's go out here and hear some business practices and learn some communications from the Kellogg School of Business. It was go hang out with your peers. That's where you're going to learn. And I would say that was the biggest inflection point of Ruff Roofers and my career, was not as much going to that class, that program, which was, a couple weeks a year for 3 years, not a huge lift. But it was after, when we all got together. When I say all, there was 28 in the class, and 5 of us said, we don't want this to end. We do so much learning among each other. How do we keep this going? So it was really a peer group now. So starting in 2007, when the program was over, every quarter we visited each other's companies for like a 2 or 3 day trip, and serious trips. We weren't out there to party in Louisville, Kentucky, or Sacramento, California, or Fort Lauderdale, Florida, which is some of these places where these friends of mine had roofing businesses. But it was coming with an agenda, setting your own goals. What do you want to get out of this trip? viewing dispatch at 5 a.m.? How do their crews leave in the morning? Do they have their own ice machine? Do they stop at the store? Like all the little nitty gritty things with operations.
Yeah. Where do they fuel? Right.
Where do they fuel? Do they have cards? Do they have a tank in their backyard?
Mhm.
Like, where's the most efficient manner? What works for you? What works for us? What can we steal in terms of ideas? And what can we share with them that we do? And I'm thinking back to goal setting. That was probably the most powerful thing for me, because you see all these great companies. And as we would go around in this 5-quarter circle, we did that for like 5 years, and are like, okay, cool. Tegler, you're doing great. And Arnold, and let's go to somebody outside the group. And I remember we went to Denver and we visited 3 companies in 3 days, which was kind of overload. But the fraternity, like in the roofing industry, is pretty amazing. Like, I could cold call you and say, hey, here's my group. Here's the bios of everybody. We're truly here just to learn and share what we do. Can we come in? And we've never heard no.
Mm.
And I'm almost 30 companies into doing this in 20 years, 18 years. But I'll say that's the biggest needle mover in changing that, like I said, that inflection point of Ruff Roofers growth, because our team is like, when I'm getting back, they know I'm going. What's changing now? Like I get back from these trips and like, oh gosh, I don't know another one of these roofing trips.
We always we laugh about, we'll just get this big boulder over the hill, and everybody will be like on the team, like, just for us to just bring another big boulder. And we're like,
Yeah,
wait.
put it at the bottom of the other side of the hill.
It's
Exactly.
perfect.
Question. Okay.
Yeah, I want to I want to.
And I want to double back to one more dad moment before we go too.
Okay, I want to put a pin in this, because so many people watching this they're business minded, and I think you hit on one thing that I have to remind myself of, because right now is I am so stuck in the trenches of my business, like literally project management, even though I own the company. And one thing I have not done as much is get out there with my peers. And because I'm the same thing, I'm like, I have too much work. I've got to do this. But what I have to remind myself is every time I do that, my vision gets a little bit bigger. Like I realize I'm playing smaller than I need to be. And like, those are the moments I think so too. Like when I'm with a peer and I'm like, wow, look at that business. Like I can dream bigger. There's more opportunity. That are those inflection points, as you said. Mm-hmm. And so I'm curious, are those like the moments you have where you look at another business, you're like, yeah, I'm playing small ball, or?
So yes and no. We visited companies that did $5 million a year in top line to, I'm thinking of Crowther Roofing in Florida that did $150 million a year. And we go to certain businesses and we see, but I will back up and say it's all about like bigger isn't better. I was taught this from an early age. Mm-hmm. I would rather do half as less and make twice as much, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. Like work smart, not hard mentality, but it's really, I would answer that with, what do you want to mm-hmm. do? Mm-hmm. It's your business. What do you want your lifestyle to be? And mine was, I want to go 100 miles an hour all the way until I don't. That was just me. Like that's how I'm wired and that's how I was raised. And I was work ethic was the biggest part of my upbringing. Back to your point about dad. I mean, that's the biggest thing my parents instilled in me, like just a work ethic. And it disciplining back then was not disciplining today. So you can imagine where I'm going there, right?
Oh, I recognize that disciplining for sure. I know exactly. I know specifically what you're saying.
Yeah. And it just it does work. It worked on me. Worked on my brother. I mean,
fear is a hell of a motivator, right?
Yeah,
100%. 100%.
Question. Can you recall a moment where you were talking about your dad being a counselor and you had to sell him, if you will, everything? A moment where you went to the mat to sell him something and you didn't get your way. He said, yep, that's not passing mustard. No.
No.
Really?
Mm-mm. Ultimately,
coalesced around whatever you wanted to do. And I don't mean blindly,
if
right?
it was something
but made
big,
you do the diligence.
I can think a couple things. Do you remember that movie Focus with Will Smith?
Mm-mm.
Well, they planted all these things for like an hour, and in the crowd, they had the guy with the 88 number. And it was almost like they conditioned the way they wanted this decision to be made. But with my dad, even if it was a bigger sell, maybe one like you're mentioning, I set it up over the time. Like, I don't know, I keep thinking back to equipment needs. Like, purchasing was like kind of a no-no, right? We want to keep the money in the business, show retained earnings, show everything was about bonding power. And when we could out bond roofers 3 times our size, that's powerful when you want to get premium dollars for the project. So it wasn't as much about that, but I'll say I cannot think of an instance where I was not able to negotiate it, but I say negotiate it like I won something. Truly, I just got to see him to see it through my lens. Like, this is what I want to do because I want to do this next. It was never like, oh, I just won. Oh yeah, I got him. I won that. It was, I just need to get him to sit in my seat and like see what I'm looking at. That was my negotiation. Like, how do I get him to sit here and look right through this lens?
Right.
I mean, that's the skill of a great salesperson, though. So how did you learn that? Or what did it come very natural to you?
Probably a combination of mom and dad. I mean,
Yeah, tell us about mom. Like we've
met
yeah,
mom.
Yeah, tell us about mom.
She is
we had
a
met,
character.
mom is a fireball.
Yeah.
So, but we love to like back up to mom in the day, right? And mom next to dad, because I remember my mom next to my dad.
So their dynamic was, I mean, they got married at 19 and 20, right? This is being recorded. She's not going to like this, but hey, I was at the wedding, right? I was in the womb, and she was Catholic. So obviously they were very young.
We'll keep that exactly right here. I promise. Don't you worry.
There's no secret.
Does she know about YouTube?
She does. But no, I would say she was, a lot of people use that term, the anchor. I think she was more of just the emotional support. Like, my dad was very passive. Like, he was a pretty quiet guy, very, very quiet guy, unless it really mattered, right? But my mom, I feel like they were just a good team in building a business, because he would bring all these problems at home. And granted, he's gone 15 hours a day. Like, 12 is a dream, right? So he's getting home, he's leaving at 4 a.m. He's getting home at 7, 8 o'clock at night. And she was just the one that got everything bounced off of her. And I really do feel like she was just kind of a coach for him as well. So very instrumental in the growth of not just the kids, right? Everybody thinks about the mom and the development of the children, but really just growing the business, especially in this like kind of infancy reset stage in the late 90s,
What was your brother? When did he join the business? At the same time you did? And the one thing you guys talked about, how different your brother and you are in the lanes you operate in. Did that evolve naturally?
It evolved because that's the way my dad kind of dictated, I'll say. And he had this kind of saying that I remember for many years, but it's like, listen, if you guys just stick together, trust me when I tell you, it will work out. No matter what. One guy has to be passive. One guy's got to be aggressive. Then you switch roles. Whatever the case is, just do your father a favor and stick together. I'm 24, 25 years old when he's telling me this. So 20 years ago, right? And I think about it today. Just stick together. So how did it evolve? So, me being the negotiator and coming out of college, and he was like, you got to go work on the roof. I'm like, well, then I'm not working here. I went and got 3 job offers. The highest was working for the Cintas Uniform Company. I could have come out with like a $50K base, and this was 2001, 2002-ish. And I said, well, okay, I'll work for you. You got to beat this. He's like, well, you got to work on the roof. I said, okay, deal's off. Meet the next day. He's like, all right, fine. You don't have to go on the roof. Versus my brother, who... truthfully, I think he was just at the time just a little more nicer than me. Wanted to please dad a little more. And, dad tells Tim, you're going back up. Tim also not going to the business, CIS major, right? Computer Information Systems, also pivoted. And Tim, like, just to skip over, he's a craftsman, like attention to detail, great, just a great person in construction. Now backing up. Tim thought he was coming out to be a project manager. And, my dad tells him, well, you're not. You're going back up. So Tim's like I say, he just did what he was told, but he really did it because that's where we needed him. Right. So he's like, look, this is for the greater good. I'm guessing that was his mindset. I'm pretty sure it was.
Well, you're going to know after he watches this.
Oh, true. I guess he's listening to me in 3 months. But so he goes back up, and Tim like ran the field for 10 years. You know, he was learning the sheet metal trade. Like, he's an expert in sheet metal. I mean, we hired a guy, friend of mine owns a company in Louisville, American Roofing, and we hired a guy from him because he relocated it to this area. And this gentleman said, you know, I've worked for like 5 roofing companies in 40 years. I've never seen a job run the way Tim runs a job. Just so you know. I'm like, thanks. I actually did know. Because I visited all these places. I'm like, I've never seen jobs set up like this. But back to it, he went up on the roof, and I would say almost 10 years, probably right before my dad passed, which he was 53, very unexpected, brain aneurysm. We kind of converged like back inside, I'll call it, in the business at like really project management. And that's when we started really working together. You know, I was kind of just selling, running 100 miles an hour every day and working on, we hit this like plateau at a $12 to $13 million top line range in like 07, 08 maybe, where we just needed more talent. So I was like, full court press on trying to find the right people. A lot of learning lessons there too. But Tim and I, just very different paths, because we started out like I'm trying to sell and he's trying to execute, right? So the easiest way to put it, I tell people like I'm the in and he's the out. But at our size, it's just not that dynamic anymore. Right. Now we have these great, truly great, like top level leaders below us that we're grooming to do the same thing we did. So I would say that's kind of the divide. Okay. And now it's just this muddy thing around where we just do everything. Yeah. Right. Yeah. What's your project now?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. How old were you when your dad passed away? How old were you?
33.
And your brother's a little younger, right?
Yeah, 13 months.
Okay. So just a little younger.
Yep.
Yeah, Irish twins. Yeah.
Yes.
So take us back to that time, because obviously aneurysm, quick.
Yeah.
Unexpected.
What did it look like in that moment?
So backing up, like I loved working there because I liked working for Dad and, you know, ultimately Mom as well, and great working with my brother. But so it happened. I mean, I was on top, literally the State House in Annapolis when I got this call. So I remember going across, so we live on Eastern Shore, right? So I remember going across the Bay Bridge and calling my mom and like being like, what am I going to do now? Like tears in my eyes. I do what I do because of Dad. You know, no offense, Mom, but this is why I do it. Yeah. I like working with Dad. And like, I don't know what I want to do now kind of conversation. So I would say the dust settles, and I just had some talks with Tim, like, truthfully, I'm just not sure anymore that I want to continue on this. And Tim, I remember Tim getting asked the same question one time, and his response was, you know, we were just taught, keep putting one foot in front of the other. And I'm thinking back to just stick together, right? And even if I didn't want to do it, I can never abandon Tim. Right. Like, this guy's he's gonna lose it. Like, this roofing is insane. By the way, if you want another podcast, come in at 5 a.m. one day and just see what goes on.
Okay.
Like, it's crazy.
We've been dying to go on the road. Tommy, got it?
I mean, it's a wild industry, and it's not just at Ruff Roofers. It's nationwide. I've not been internationally yet. But it was really just interpersonal, what I want to do. And, you know, truthfully, it was economics in the beginning. And I purposely stayed single for so long because I grew up with such humble beginnings, like literally parents working 6-7 days to put food on the table, and, you know, Mom working at Nordstrom to carry health insurance when the business restarted, and all these different things. I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm going to like try to put some nest eggs together first, then I'll get married. So backing up, it was just Tim and I kind of having a meeting about what do we want to do, and that one foot in front of the other kind of adage he used. And that's what it was. And again, really, we just had such a great team around us. There was no option but to win and succeed and not fail. And that was the only year we were even flat, you know, so Granted, that was an $18 million year, probably 2012. And, now we're triple the size just here in Baltimore, right? So that's just kind of a testament to what Tim and I just continued to do, was that one foot in front of the other, and let's just keep it going. And granted, my dad used to say, you've got the disease, right? We just like to work.
Mm-hmm.
We're not golfers. We go on the boat here and there, but we don't take vacations. I mean, it wasn't until 2021 where like I took my first full week off when I got married, like literally 7 days, 20 years professional worker. That's just, I didn't need it.
Mm-hmm.
I like 3-day trips. Great. Let's get back to work.
Yeah.
So I would say that's probably how it all happened.
So when your father passed, there had to be some fear just from just not knowing inside your organization, and probably externally too, your vendors you work with, because your dad, I'm sure, was at that time the face of the company. So how did those challenges come with like the internal of your employees and externally, like not knowing what's the future of Ruff? There's these young boys running the company now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how did you guys deal with that? And how did you manage it and even stay flat? I mean, that's amazing for that year.
Yeah. And I want to just add to that. Like you said, you battled doubt for a second. How did you keep your all the people around you from battling doubt?
Yeah.
So he wasn't the guy that was there running the company at that point.
Okay.
He was probably only in Maryland for extended time because at the time I had a 16-year-old sister. So my parents had the oops baby. I was a freshman in college. And she's, almost 20 years younger than me. So.
And she definitely knows about YouTube. So she's here.
Oh, yeah. 100%. So Juliet was probably like the biggest thing kind of keeping him in Maryland, my parents in general. But he was already in Key West a good bit, living in Florida resident, all that kind of thing. Not running the day-to-day. Tim and I really had that under control, I'll say. Still learning, still tripping over our own feet, calling dad with, multiple times a day with, what do we do here? What do you want us to do here kind of thing. But when it happened, I don't think it was the biggest shock because he wasn't like there every day.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It was already, the torch was already passed multiple years before that.
Okay.
And when I said much earlier in the conversation, like we all said, like he was a little crazy, like letting us have this kind of rope. Because some of the decisions I'm making, I'm thinking I'm like 24, 25 years old. I'm like, I guess it was learning. I guess he was trying to just teach me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't enough that it could hurt us.
Yeah.
But it could, but it, not detrimentally anyway.
So there weren't any huge bombs along the way as he was extending that leash?
Yeah. So looking back, so I'm going to frame it this way as someone who understood exactly what you just said. In retrospect, is there any moment where you were putting it on the block and you just missed the cleaver, but didn't know it then? Because I can tell you about 5 or 10 or 20 of those where you're like, holy shit, if I had known what I known then, I would never have done it. And I happened to manage to outrun it. Maybe I'll think it, but outran it. Because I could go for days on the number of reasons we should have been wiped out and just by a hair weren't.
Yeah, so no.
Come on, man.
He wasn't as dumb as you.
We were so conservative.
God, I'm such a fucking moron.
There was never an intent to even grow. Like, I feel like to get to this inflection point that you're talking about, there's something big on the horizon or something with that big event could go wrong and divert us. We were so conservative in our bidding that, again, it wasn't an intent to get bigger. We just did a great job. And it just happened.
Right.
Today, we're in a different mindset. Now we want to intently grow. We know it creates more opportunities for our people. They think differently. They act differently. Then they start helping backfill them. It's just, we have different mindsets now because now we're like convictingly, we want to grow. Mm-hmm. We have goals. Before it was, let's just do a great job. People are going to call us. And I just interviewed a sales guy who's from Virginia. And he came up and he's like, well, how do you get your leads? And I said, what do you mean? People just call us. It's like, I don't have to go find my own leads. I'm like, no, I think we average 16 calls a day. They just, hey, can you come fix or replace my roof? He goes, that's unheard of in the industry. I said, not when you just do great work. Mm-hmm. It just, you don't have to advertise. We don't spend money on marketing, all those types of things. our philanthropic events are like, I call it selfish philanthropy because, if we do a roof for this Catholic school, yes, I'll sponsor your golf tournament, right? So it's always a give back, but it's a thank you for the work, right? It's never a, let's go pay to build more business. We did a great job. Let's give them a thank you type of thing. But I think that's really the secret sauce, is just doing an excellent job, customer service, and the work just comes to you.
One more biz question, then we're going to get to Dad Rob, husband Rob. You said your dad was a visionary.
Yeah.
Would you, if he were alive and could comment, would he say that you're on vision, different vision? What would he say?
He would say probably right on, and what Tim and I have been doing in the last 2 years is exactly what he wanted to do. So we have a lot of changes with the business lately in a positive way and made for growth. But I would say he would high five us and say, right on, and you guys are doing a great job. And he probably would be like, wow, you knocked it out of the park, truthfully. Because, I remember when he hit a milestone financially, we were talking about it. We were in Florida. And I said, did you think that was going to happen? He goes, I thought that was going to happen. And then we doubled it. And I said, did you think that? He goes, no. I said, you're being honest this time.
Good.
But I think he would just commend us because, there's not 1% chance this could be done without this dynamic that my parents created with myself, my brother. Obviously, the support. Mom's still pretty involved in, if nothing else, emotional and background leadership. I mean, she's still doing that to this day. She still works for the company.
I want to continue on the business track for a couple more questions.
Sure.
One thing you were talking about now is you spend so much time hiring. And I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I think all the best CEOs I've listened to say the same thing. But it took a while to get there. And they say, spending 80% of their time hiring talent, because eventually you get to the point where you realize that is the key. That's the key to great businesses. So I would love to selfishly hear just like your tips and what you've learned and how you go about the hiring process, because it sounds like your company is where it is because it's great people, like, period.
That's what it is. It's all people. I would say equally as important to hiring is that initial onboarding and culture buy-in once they're hired. But the hiring part is probably a much shorter discussion than
Let's do both. I'd
the
love to hear
second piece.
both.
So I learned it was actually the year I passed, Under Armour had this hiring process where even for, a front desk administrative person, not to demean that role, but it's the lowest in the org chart, right? But even for that role, they might pay $38,000 a year, a dozen years at Under Armour. That person would have like 8 interviews, right? Everybody, if we all in this room had to work with that person at any level, we want to bless that candidate. We want everybody to touch them and say, you know what, Brittany's the person. And if one person out of the 6 or 8 interviews says, I didn't like her, there's no questions asked. We all move on.
All executives in that room?
No.
Okay.
Peers, really, really lateral peers and up, right? And it wasn't like you're going to interview your boss, but on a lateral level, and we adopted that. So now it's probably a little bit annoying for the candidate. We try to knock out as many trips as possible, but it's not uncommon. I can think of our operations manager, Nick, who's probably approaching his 10th year with us. He had 5 interviews. And it was not to paint the rosy picture. It was like, hey, Nick, when this guy drives his truck in a ditch at 1 a.m, guess who's answering the call? It's you. When this breaks down on a Easter Sunday and you have to go open up the yard to get another piece of equipment, guess who's doing it? You do. So I know you've met with all the people here, but we just want to tell you exactly how this is going to go. This is your job. Are you sure you want this role? And operations manager in roofing, right? It's every day's different. We'll leave it at that. But It was probably just those multiple levels and layers of interviews and getting the cultural buy-in from every person that would work with the candidate. That was probably the little bit of secret to the success in the last 12 years, because I think 2013 we started that, was just everybody talking, even doing their own one-on-one. And they could sit in an interview and say, you know what? Mick should interview this person, because they're going to be working with them too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like there was some SOP that we had to follow. It was who's going to touch this candidate and who needs to make sure they want them on the team. So a very democratic hiring philosophy in let's make a group decision. And we still do that to this day. I mean, we just had a VP of sales candidate in from out of town this past week. He probably interviewed 5 people. This is after like 3 or 4 Zooms. He probably interviewed with 5 people. Anybody that would work with this person had to say, this is the guy. We can't try people out. There's no time.
Mm-hmm.
Training is such an investment in all of our time. We just can't try people. Let's try them. None of that. We stopped that 15 years ago. So now it's, let's make sure they're the person, and then we'll go. And then the people are invested in helping that person succeed.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just like, what do you need? What can I help you with? And it just creates that culture of everybody's drinking the Kool-Aid. That person's going to make it.
Yeah. And our yes and moment here, which we have a lot of, is exactly right? The second that they all buy in, they now have ownership of the success, which is the opposite of anything would look like sabotage,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, they're all bought in to say, oh shit, I signed off on Rob. I have to do my part to make sure Rob's successful. And then if you wrap 5, 6, 7 people, your chances of success just go up exponentially in that moment. So yeah, completely agree. Now, and then on to the onboarding, right? Because or that integration and adoption. I'll even use the word adoption because I think it's that important. Where yes, you've agreed that you have the right candidate, but now how do you? Because if you miss on the adoption, then you still don't get anything that looks like embedded productivity, like all the things that you're trying to get, and you could be back starting over if you blow step 2, if you will.
Yes. So we have this kind of mindset. If we can get them to a year, they're not leaving. Like the bulk of our company, the heartbeat of our company is mid-30s, and they've been here since they were 20, 21, right? Entry level. We've got this generation that doesn't stay at jobs. They jump for 10 or 20,000 more a year after 3 to 5 years. Like that's already an eternity for that age group. It's not really not you, but us or our parents. Like that generation, we went somewhere, we worked there forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We know that's the dynamic now. So back to our theory of that 1-year hump, we got to get them to that hump. And our project managers, they have to go work in the field. Our estimators, sales guys, they got to go work in the field. It's windy, it's rainy, it's 100 degrees. Go work in the metal shop, cut their hand. Like they have to go physically do a lot of the stuff they're going to manage or sell. And while they're doing that, how do you keep them going? How do you get them to see the light at the end of the tunnel? And truthfully, that's what my dad did with us too. Like you just got to see what's coming. So it's a very sincere process, because when we do these Friday 5-minute check-ins, 30, 60, 90-day recaps, all these things just to make sure, like, how are you, like, as a person? Are you dealing with any difficult personalities? All these different, like, call it a nuance with being at a new organization. Hit us with it. Mm-hmm. We'll help you. We're not going to go tell Joe you got a problem with him. We're going to go tactfully deal with it without anybody knowing about it. And that's where, like, the real time is spent in the dynamic of, the interorganizational behavior. And when I talk about the investment in the people just outside of the office, this past Friday, one of our project managers, Alex, mm-hmm. his wife's from Louisiana. They do the meanest crawfish boil, right? So we had, 40 people over at my house Friday afternoon, take off a couple hours early. We kick it off at like 2:30 p.m. It's going to be a busy summer, right? Project manager number 1 and number 2, bring your wife and kids. Let's have a little shindig. And they work their butt off putting this thing on, and then they finally get to relax. But that's not by accident, those types of situations, right? We create those experiences. You get to let loose. When that guy's leaning on you on Saturday at 4 p.m. because you both had to work because we got 3 rain days that week, you can count on him. Like, you got to know him, right? So, and my dad started doing this 20 plus years ago with just doing things outside of the office space. Mm-hmm. And what we've learned lately is, don't do it on a Saturday or Sunday. Take a couple hours off early on a Friday and do it. And don't interfere with what the 100 other things everybody has going on at night. But I would say that's probably the biggest thing for the hiring and the buy-in and the culture. And one thing's kind of sticking out in my mind is Matt Higgins, who you may know. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So Matt, another one of our young leaders in the company, he's an engineer, right? He's a transportation major. Thought he was going to be building bridges and tunnels. I hear the Key Bridge could use them. But, it's the downturn in the market. And he didn't get a job in that field and sees us at one of the University of Maryland engineering fairs. And he takes the job, right? Probably wasn't too glamorous. Oh, he gets to tell all his buddies that are working at these big engineering firms, I work at a roofing company. And, he's one of our kind of spokespeople now at these civil engineering fairs. I had to go work on the roof and thought I was going to be designing bridges and doing structural analysis on this.
And the air conditioning with remote work options.
Of course. Yeah. And now I'm like working on a roof, and, he's been with us probably 14 years, 15 years. And he is 5 or 6 years in. Like, I could never imagine doing something different, right? It takes a special talent and knack to get that guy to love it. Mm-hmm. He's not, if Mr. 68-year-old owner just hires Mr. engineering student, he's not making it. But if you got a little bit of relatability and you got the work ethic and that person has a work ethic, and then you get the cultural buy-in, I don't see a guy like that ever leaving you. Right? So that's what we try to build, is just that team atmosphere. Nobody's in our organization like, I'm above you. It's a very, like I say, democratic system, and we just work together to get the job done.
I was going to ask you, and selfishly as a younger company, because I'm always challenged with how do I actually create culture? It's it's a weird word, and it's a hard thing to establish, and I'm still really working on it. But you really answered that. And I will say, and this is just a statement, not a question, Mick and I talk about this all the time. I mean, you are one of the most gracious hosts for your friends and your employees, period, for everybody. You just do so much. And I think you've created culture, and not just parties and everything, but you talk about multiple touch points, how are you doing, those kind of things. And I think that is the relatability. How are you doing personally, which creates that culture. Anything else that I could take a tip from as far as creating culture beyond what you've already touched on?
Well, I mean, what's the most important thing to most of us is it's our families, right? Yeah. So, and like most dynamics in the household, Mick and I don't wear the pants. So
definitely not.
Equally keeping her or him as happy as you can creates that buy-in too. Yep. When you need to squeeze a little more out of this person, or they voluntarily say, I got to go run this job in Richmond, Virginia for 3 weeks, you get the buy-in because you've put the work in to help the spouse, obviously the most important in their life, hopefully, see what we're all trying to do. Right. It's not oh, he's got to work again. Oh, he's got to do this. And granted, those instances aren't prevalent. They're not every day, but when you need to lean on them, and you're going to have a busy couple months because we had a couple months of rain and we couldn't get anything done. Well, you need that support factor. Yes. So I would say that's a little bit of an X factor and it's sincere. We want to get together, and culture just organically happens when that dynamic is there. When my wife meets your wife and it's not like, oh, we got together and had a bottle of wine. It's, oh, we're actually, now we see what we're trying to do and what we're trying to build and who's got the ball now and who's running in this lane. It's a little bit deeper than probably this podcast, but we have like some playbooks and like what we're trying to do. And I hate using the word goals all the time, but it's a little deeper than that, because some of these goals are interpersonal, and it's, what do you want to do? Because it's not just what Ruff sets out to do. It's you. Where do you want to be in a year or 5? We could talk to somebody who's our service manager, and this is a live example, not live, but past, but real. You know, I don't like service. I want to go into this department. Perfect. Like, you've heard the term, we hire people, not positions. Mm-hmm. We've just always done that. I just love that term. But okay, well, we can gravitate you to that seat. Help us backfill you. Help us find your replacement. Talk about buy-in to training someone up to replace them so they can go do something else they want to do. So it's also giving that person the option to do anything in an organization they want to do every day. Every day you come in the parking lot, I want you to be there. I want you to be like, I love what I'm doing. If you don't, let us know. That's why I think retention is so high. Tim and I have such high-level communicative skills that these people, like really, truly team members and family, they're not going to leave. They're going to say, hey, I don't like what I'm doing, or my wife wants to relocate. That's an exception, right? She's got her dream job in Florida. I would expect that's the only time we would lose someone,
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Something out of our control. But
Yeah. Don't let me know our trajectories aren't aligned when you're leaving, right? As part of the
Right.
exit interview.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Like, whoa, what happened? Right. That would be terrible.
And
right?
that's where all the time spent
and so
as a
avoidable.
leader is learning that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? It's an intangible. It doesn't hit your bottom line. You can't put a number on it. It's time. Obviously, it's finite, but if you invest your time in those people, it's going to be an unbelievable dividend.
Well, we got to put some spotlight on Miley.
So wait, segue moment, because I'm going right here, right?
Okay.
So we spent a lot of time together, right? And we are so fortunate to be good friends and hang out socially. But I think we're probably going to get deeper today. Maybe we've had a chance to. One of my most interesting takeaways was how intentional you were about getting married, right? And waiting, and the idea that you didn't want to subject your wife, right, to what your mom maybe had to go through.
Or children.
Yeah. Or children, right? So being very intentional about waiting and building and or getting to the appropriate point in your life, career, whatever, to be able to invite somebody in. So interesting. Love that you share that with us. Tell us now, like, obviously we know Miley well, and we know you, and obviously we know your kids. Walk us through that evolution, right? You get to the point, or when did you think you finally were there? When did you allow yourself to let somebody come in?
And how'd you guys meet?
When did I do it? I mean, I got an ultimatum.
No, but even to the point where you're like, okay, this could be the person, and feel like I'm where I am to be able to let myself experience this or invite somebody into the mix, which you admittedly hadn't done prior.
True, and I'll back up. My dad, when I say my best friend, like not just work, like everything, like, and he was coaching me. He goes, look, if you really want to get this business going, don't get married. I felt like it was not a coach. It was a directive.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't as much counseling as it was, don't do it.
Yeah.
There's no time for that kind of thing. If you're smart, you'll never get married. I'm like, okay.
Oh my God.
Says the guy with 5 kids.
Oh my God, I'm having the throwback moment of all too.
Yeah, says the guy with 5 kids and been married one time and was married until he passed. But I probably had this little bit of an epiphany. I was 39, and Miley and I were in Key West, Florida. We did a little New Year's thing with my family, and truthfully, I probably would have just stayed in that path forever. I was good.
The forever boyfriend.
Yeah, I was good. You know,
Of course you were.
And Miley, she kind of had this. It was like probably right after the fireworks went off at midnight, and she's like, gives me essentially the ultimatum. You know,
How long have you been dating at that point?
I don't know, maybe like 4 years, but intermittent. Like, you know, she had just graduated dental school when I met her. I think she might have still been in school a little bit, maybe just about to graduate. Living in DC, she was about to move to Texas for a job once. And I was like, whoa.
slow your roll.
Yeah. And she's like, well, I don't have any reason to stay here. So, you know, I planted some seeds with that. And then, you know, she's much more mature than me. So she put that down with let's make a decision or let's move on kind of thing. So knew each other very well. So I, you know, manned up and matured and bought a ring.
How long did it take you after that ultimatum on New Year's Eve? 4 years. No.
That September. Funny, we were at Oktoberfest in Germany and I had the ring in my pocket. My brother did not even know that, like, I was thinking about doing it that day. And, you know, Tim had a couple of these like big steins in Germany. And he's like, Miley. And Miley's a singer, by the way. Unbelievable singer.
Do we know that?
Yeah.
I did
knew
not know that.
Oh,
She
yeah.
sung Walking Down the Aisle at our wedding.
Oh, yeah. She's incredible. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So Tim, you know, I don't want to say it's like karaoke, but these huge tents in Munich, like so many people in them. And Tim's like, you know, sing for the ring. I know if you sing, Miley, Rob's going to marry you.
But Tim had no idea.
No, he didn't know I was about to propose. Like possibly that day. I was just thinking about on this like 3 or 4 day trip we had. Maybe I'll find the right time. So I was like, honey, you got to do it. She goes up there and she's singing with another girlfriend of hers, Alex's wife, and they're singing, and it was great. And I was like, well, I can't do it now.
Do you recall what she was singing?
Oh, baby. Like,
Britney Spears?
no, like, I want you to be my girl.
Oh,
yeah. Older, right? So older. Yeah.
Everything in Germany is older, like 60s
sure.
and 70s.
Right.
Like,
That's good. That's a good one.
it was a good one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to sing it for you.
If it hits me, I'll sing it. Don't worry. I'm trained.
So I pivot, and her best friend from dental school, Haley, is on her honeymoon in Lake Como. I see it on like Instagram. I said, okay. Call up the fiance or the husband now. Hey, we're over in Munich. I see it's like an hour and a half flight. I could be there. It's like Ryanair's like $100.
We just did that.
And I was like, is it cool if we come crash your last night or something? And he's like, please. Oh, I forgot she might be watching us.
Hopefully they
She
don't
might
have
watch us.
YouTube.
No, but he's like, no, please. It's been a week. Like, come. So we go out there, and that's where the surprise all went down. So long story, but it was a success. I got engaged in Lake Como, married in Key West.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're married. Now you have you add children to the mix.
Yes.
And, you know, Mick has 3 older daughters, my stepdaughters. And we just had a child 1 year old almost. And it has completely changed my life, but my perspective. And that has, changed everything in business too, which I never really, like a child, business, you think like separate buckets. No, like your perspective changes and everything changes. So talk to me about how having children not only changed your life, but because it is a business podcast, Love and Business, how it changed you as a business person.
Wow, great question. So 2 boys now, by the way, 2 and 5, one will be 3. One was born on my birthday, so that's really cool.
And those are cool ages, really cool ages.
Yeah, so how did it change the business? I will say,
And also to your perspective of
Yeah,
life too,
right,
right? I
right,
think
definitely.
the perspective aspect
which changes business.
Well, my brother beat me to kids by about 7 years. His kids are 12 and 10 this year. And for 11 and 9 years, I've heard, you're going to see, you'll see. I got to do this. I got to be here. And I didn't disbelieve him. But, you know, I think he always had this like little guilty thing, like, oh, I got to go pick up my kid from school. I got to do it. I'm like, great. That's what you should do.
Yeah.
You know, maybe because I was putting in all these crazy hours, but it was never viewed like that. He nonstop works, I nonstop work. So I think I got a little bit of a head start in what was coming just because he and I are so close. And he was keeping me up to speed, like play by play, whether it was sports or gymnastics or her dance and all these things. I got to hear all the things. And it was not a complaint from him by any means. It was like, this is what's coming. Like, if you ever do it, get ready, but you have to be there. So I'd say the biggest thing that changed, truthfully, I don't think it was even with me or with Tim. It was probably with our people and what we demanded. So Ruff Roofers, like, I think a lot of organizations are top-down work ethics. And what does the owners do? And I visit roofing companies where the owners work 3 days a week and they do this and they do this. And when you walk around the office, that's kind of like the culture, like laid back, and they wear hats in the office and people are wearing shorts, and we don't allow jeans unless it's Friday, right? And no hats in a building, just how we were raised, all these little things. But I would say back to the demands, it's really, man, all these different Saturdays we were having people work and like they got kids and all these things. And even before I had kids, we went to like a Saturday rotation where it was like 14 leaders. So guess what? You had to work every 3.5 months. You had to work a Saturday, and it was like 5 a.m. and you were gone by noon. So even to this day, I'm like, that's not a crazy lift. And they get an extra PTO day when they do it. So it's like you add on maybe work 3 a year. But it was probably just the demands of work versus you need to be there for these little people and for the spouse. And forget the little people, just to give her a break, right? Not everybody can have a grandma that lives close by or an au pair that lives in the house or the nanny or, you know, after school care and all these different dynamics of taking care of these kids.
Yeah.
That
local parents that are young enough, right? I mean, whatever that support structure would look like.
Not everybody has any support structure. So the biggest change for me was probably just looking from someone else's seat at that family dynamic and expectations and demands. And if you need to do this, and I've never been one to fight people. I just don't have that management style. Like, they're going to do what they want to do. And I'm not going to ever pretend I can change people. But when I looked at it like this, I thought, they'll get it done or they won't succeed. Not to say they don't have a seat on the team still, but you kind of just know like what you can get out of people. And we want to get out of people what they want to give. That's really it. Like, you want to do more? We pay for responsibility, I say. You don't have to be the guy rounding the bases every time you go up to bat, but your economics are going to show that, right? So we're very performance-based company in terms of pay, for example. So that all ties in because we always want to like not cross the line that we're making people be here when they have a family. I just interviewed another VP of sales candidate. It's like, oh yeah, I can commute. My kids are 8, 14, and 16, and I live in North Carolina, but I can come up here 4 days a week. And I'm like, I would never hire someone like that because I don't want to put their family through it. Like
Yeah, there's a great job down there that looks like this that you can have, right?
Maybe a dozen years ago, if I thought this guy was the Michael Jordan of managing my sales and estimating guys, I might have done that. But now that I really know the inner dynamics of a family, there's no possible way I could even put someone through that, even if it was like his dream role without relocation.
Sure.
Right. So I would say really from the team and the team mindset and that view, it's probably been the biggest change, not even in my own family.
Right.
So now that you have that perspective, right, and you understand the little people, the comments you made, how do you balance that with the expectations of still getting the job done, right? Because you talked very early about service and a very high level of service, setting expectations, which is a huge differentiator for the organization. So a little bit later in life, you got the perspective of what it looks like to understand that family side. How do you then balance that with creating and maintaining expectations that keeps Ruff highly differentiated in the market?
So there's no secret sauce for like that time management. It's at this point prioritizing. Like, what is most important to you? Do you have time? Let's take the customer service experience. If you don't have time to manage all these accounts, someone will. And if you can't do it properly, we'll get someone else to do it. Not a big deal. We're not taking the gold star off your helmet because of that. We're just going to get somebody else to deal with it because we can't take a step back in customer service, or that they could go to someone else. I would say that's the easiest answer to how to pivot off of time there. I'm trying to think what else. Tell me again the second part of that question.
Yeah, just I think, so what you said resonates with me. It definitely resonates with you. I mean, the number of conversations we had where, and having teammates that have families and are very family oriented. And really recognizing game day Saturday and
just so much more empathetic
and practice
now.
Thursday, the empathy that comes from that type of perspective, and being able to mix that type of empathy and understanding, yet not sacrifice the demands of the customers in your business.
Yeah,
right?
It's team lift.
Yep.
So let's just say you guys work for Ruff. You're Ruff and you're going on vacation next Wednesday. On Monday, 48 hours before you leave, we're doing a handoff. Everything on the possible horizon. And if you're going to totally disconnect, which is great, please do it. Some people don't like to, right? They get anxiety. That's me.
Yep.
And it doesn't bother me.
Yep. Coming back to the pile is anxious, right?
Yeah.
Those are anxiety moments, I think,
or
for
you
all
want
of us,
certain
right?
customers taken care of a certain way.
Yeah,
not
not happening.
Unplugging is not
At
happening.
least giving you the ball back.
Yeah.
But our playbook has been like the buddy system. So you'll have one person that will handle everything for you if you are truly going to disconnect. Or if you're touch and go and, hey, I want to keep up on calls. I don't mind if my phone rings when I'm traveling. I'll look at my emails every night. Fine. You decide. But if you want to disconnect, you've got your backstop here. And their responsibility is, that is top responsibility, all your stuff. So obviously that reciprocates when roles are reversed. When you go on vacation, this is your person. We'll do with 2 people in the room because we had an instance just this past week where we're the only bidder on the job, and it's a big wastewater treatment station. And the GC is like, hey, there's this metal roof and I need somebody to go do it. And I'm counting on you guys. And the guy's on vacation. Well, guess what? Estimator number 2 is taking care of that client. It's still, call it Mr. Vacation's win.
Mm-hmm.
And that is going to one hand wash the other when the other person's on vacation. So I think that's just an example of like the team lift is we just try to have a buddy system and a backstop. But even in those situations, things happen. So we always have like a second person in those handoff meetings, which are 2 days before. What bids do you have due? What projects do you have active? That kind of thing. I would say, just leaning on your peers.
Sounds like the computer's about to blow up over there.
Yeah, exactly. We blowing that thing up, Ken?
It's taken off. I don't know what the...
All right, so let's go. Talked about some past, present, got some EQ in here with some, getting married and having kids. Let's talk Futurescape. So $60 million business, right? I imagine this is a pretty interesting inflection point inside of the company, right? $60 million, significant business. Apple, no. Corner candy store, no. Like these are the conversations we have, right? In these middle moments. Where do you invest? How do you invest? What does the future like? Growth could come from an organic perspective. It come from an acquisition perspective. What does the Ruff playbook look like going forward, at least for the foreseeable future? I mean, financially, you guys are in a fantastic space. I know you run a great business. I know that everyone is well taken care of. You have a lot of choices. Step on it harder, coast a minute, and live a fantastic life and everybody around you and do a fantastic job of providing. balance that out. Give us some ideas of where your head is, the choices that you're thinking about making going forward.
Yeah, so I'll give you an example of just a very recent one. We built a 30,000 square foot building on our campus for sheet metal fabrication, primarily. There'd be a couple other little things going on in there, but call it 25,000 feet is fabbing metal. Pretty big undertaking, right? 26-foot clear span. You look at it, it looks, I'm looking up how much can I rent out for a hockey, ice time, because I think it's going to be easier than managing a roofing company.
No columns, throw some turf down.
No columns.
100%. Checking the insurance rates.
It's 30 foot at the ridge. Like you can throw a football in there. So I'm like, man, it's got to be something a little easier, less people.
Certainly more fun.
But at the end of the day, the example really is we sat our key 5 guys down that are helping grow the company, not just working in the metal fabrication department, but our leader in that, David, was in this meeting. And I said, look, this is going to cost us several million dollars, not seven, but about half of that. It's going to cost us several million. We have to do X amount million more of business just to pay the mortgage to build the building, right? We own the land just to go vertical. Do you guys want to do this? And Tim and I really, we were like 60-40 on that kind of growth. And for the next generation, we really did feel like, okay, this is great for recruiting. Retention is why we're having the meeting, right? We want them to be able to grow, but also for recruiting, like how cool would it be? You have this awesome facility when we have a gym in there and, a lounge and obviously multiple computerized breaks and shears. And that kind of decision really was back to that, almost like we talked about earlier with the interview process. Let's all make the decision together. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, yes, we are the personal guarantees. We're signing the note. But when you bring your team into like decisions like that, they're bought in. Mm-hmm. Like, no, I decided to do this too. Well, I tell you that as an example because our next phase of growth will be a very similar conversation with our team. Do you guys want to do this? Do we want to go? So we just did $8.5 million roof in Richmond. Big courthouse, Spanish tile, copper, modified bitumen, hot rubber as asphalt, skylights, everything under the sun.
Modified bitumen. Nobody even knows what the hell you just said. But that's amazing.
Yes, just a tip up.
That is a shout out to the tribal nature of roofing.
You'll hear modified bitumen.
Yes, I know. I got you.
I don't like to say the word, so I say bitumen.
That works out great.
But no, so like initiative might be to start a branch down there, right? A lot of really small roofers. I think there's really 2 decent sized roofers there versus 10 here. Mm-hmm. So, could be a market like for us to dive into. Mm-hmm. Well, to bring the rough culture down there, there's going to be some travel involved, right? It's 3 hours south. So it'd be a decision like, hey, team, here's the idea. Here's the playbook. Here's the runway, timing on that runway. What do you guys think? Do we want to do it? What does this growth mean for all of you guys? Like, we have another one I can't talk about yet in another branch where one of our key sales guys is like, actually, I've been thinking about moving out there 90 minutes away. Because the easiest way to build a branch is to have a sales leader, right? Then you can get a project manager and this and this and this.
Yes.
But if you don't have the sales, what's good is the branch, right? So we had a key sales leader like, I'll move there. It would be the same thing with that kind of growth, like in a different market. So that's how we're looking at growth and what can our people help us with and what do they want to do. Back to like 20 minutes ago, what do you want to do when you drive to work every day? Are you doing exactly what you want to do? And if you don't, let's just talk, because I'm sure at the organizational size we are, there's something else that's going to make you happy every day.
Yeah.
So the next phase of growth really is, I don't want to say like we're an employee-owned company and they dictate what we do. But we put the ideas out there and we let them make the decisions with us. Truly.
Yeah. Sure. So if nothing else, highly, highly collaborative, right?
Very collaborative.
Just this side of employee, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
The only difference being steak, right? That's only it. I mean, it would look the same from a conversational perspective. The difference would be steak, but it would look the same in motion.
We have a lot of, we're probably like 6 months premature to have this conversation, but we have a lot of things on the table right now that we may be embarking on that truthfully, it's like, what do these guys want to do? Gals too. What can they handle and how's it going to affect their family life? You know, and a lot of it revolves around geo. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not that easy to drive across the bridge on a Thursday or a Friday anymore, right? What happens? Something else happens to this bridge.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So you kind of got to think about all these different things. And we're doing a job in Rehoboth Beach right now. It's a pretty big job and awesome market. Not that many roofers down there, especially ones that do higher end work. So it's not feasible to drive 2 hours and 15 minutes each way, right? Someone has to be over there. Does anybody want to lead that? Because we don't want to just hire someone to be like, oh, here's your new branch. Mm-hmm. We want them to come from the culture we've built here.
Yeah. You go set up shop, right? Setting up shop.
We want them to want to do it, not we've got a new seat for you.
Yeah. Well, I think we're going on 90 minutes now.
Wow.
And I think one of the best parts of this is you do have so much going on. You always have big things going on, but personally and in the business that we want to revisit when we're able to talk more about it. But I think we should end with asking you if you have any last things to say to the audience that we haven't talked about or that are important to you in life and business.
I think
and love.
Yeah, if I was to answer that one thing, it would be relationships and, you know, who you surround yourself with. And, you know, my dad in my early 20s saying like, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Kind of like, you know, you might have some bad friends in college that played on your lacrosse team. Sorry, guys, whoever you are.
They're not listening.
But right.
They don't watch YouTube business podcasts. We know that.
Alternatively, you know, might have a friend that's in a thriving business you might want to be a part of, right? So, you know the name Jesse Itzler?
Yeah.
Yes.
Of course I do.
So I went to this thing with him 10 years ago with my brother, and I have pages of notes in my phone. And one of the things that he said that resonates with me to this day is if you don't have a seat at the table, make one. Like how you do anything is how you do everything. You know, a couple of these things is like, actually, I've been doing that like my whole career. Like if I don't have a seat in that room, I'm going to figure out how to get in that room. Mm-hmm. And I've just done that by the way I was taught and raised. But I would say if we do this again, I would want to talk about the relationships and what I've built from that and developed from that and got to be a part of from that, even down to like, you know, the Atlas Group and some other friends of ours that are in the warehouse and storage business. And, you know, I've done roofs for clients and then partnered with them. Right.
Yeah. So, like that entrepreneurial piece that we haven't touched on at all. You're very much so an entrepreneur.
And well, your mind, when you get these opportunities to meet certain people, your mind just has to be working like not what's my angle, but how can we help each other?
Mm-hmm. Sure. What's the connection point, right?
Yeah. Where's that connection point? Like,
sure.
Is there a win-win?
Yeah, sure.
Like we talk about it in hiring. This has to be a win-win, not that you're not going to get the highest offer from Ruff Roofers. I can tell you that as a candidate, but we might portray the best opportunity for the longer term. So where's the win-win?
Yeah.
If it's not there, let's move on. Mm-hmm. We're all going to be great.
Yeah. It would be this idea of collective mutual benefit, right? Right. Cool word. We just made that up here on the Love and Business podcast, but yeah, collective mutual benefit. That's what you would be looking for. And it would have this, we do talk about the value line and value proper. It would have this well above the value line, which would be more than just the quantitative piece of the relationship.
Yeah. And that's how I would round it out with great session on Ruff and the history, but really like how to leverage relationships and go to that next level. But back to like a thing I've said 6 times is what do you want to do? Mm-hmm. What are your goals? Like everybody's got a different answer. And that's what it all comes down to. Like, what do you want to do? I know what I want to do. I know what I don't want to do. So we only have so many buckets of time in our lives. I just added a new one with minions, right?
True. Yeah.
So that's like
Yes,
now
indeed.
my largest bucket, wife bucket. Business bucket was my only bucket before. There was not a business and a friends bucket. It was business, like, but now we have multiple buckets, and that's where you pivot.
Yep.
So I think relationships would be a great topic for the next one.
Well, look, we know
Done.
you have a lot of great things going on, and we're going to wait for those to break a little bit, get you right back on here as quick as we can.
Great.
And thank you so much.
Yeah,
for having
thank you
me.
so
Yeah,
much.
thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Salute.
What do you guys have in that cup?
This is just water. I'm going to have something else in a minute.
Welcome to Ace Rodney Talks with the Superstars. Tonight, with guest, the incredible